All right, Randy Walker here at the USTA National Campus here at Lake Nona, Florida, just outside of Orlando. I'm here with John Parsons, who has the amazing college tennis podcast, No Ad, No Problem. He's also J Tweets Tennis on Twitter. Great Twitter follow for all those people who are on Twitter and want to follow college tennis. And of course, we're at the USTA National Campus, which is right near Orlando Airport. And there's the airplane coming in right now. So before we talk to John, we'll let this plane pass over. But we're here at the NCAA Tennis Championships, the fall version of the NCAA Tennis Championships. It is November, what is today? November 18th, November, whatever. It's the week before Thanksgiving. And a lot of people have been texting me and sending me DMs and talking to me privately. Why are the NCAA Tennis Championships held in November? It's usually the individuals here in November. It's usually played after the team event in May. So I want to talk to John because John follows college tennis like nobody else. He is probably the leading college tennis expert out there in the media. So John, why do we have the NCAAs here in November?
Well, great question. We are part of a 2-year pilot testing out this experience of having NCAAs in the fall. The reasons given are a few. The first was that the top players who are competing both in the team event and then in the individuals, singles and doubles, it wasn't putting the student athlete health first. So there could be risk of injuries, risk of burnout, and then it was really hard emotionally for players to rebound after a tough team event. Certainly we've seen players do that in the past, but that was one reason given. Another reason given was that when you talk to athletic directors across the country, they didn't understand the point of the collegiate fall season, where you play a lot of individual tournaments, and then in the spring, it's really about the team, and then you kind of tack on the individual event at the end. And so they said, hey, if we clearly define the 2 seasons, athletic directors will better understand it. It'll be easier for you to explain. And then you'll have players kind of focus on the individual tournament in the fall, give that its special limelight, and then focus the spring entirely on the team event.
So what are the pros? I guess that's the pros, but what are the cons from your perspective of having the team event or the individual event here in the fall? What are the drawbacks?
Well, I think
I'll chime in too.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to get your thoughts. I think one big drawback is potentially not having the top players. Now, people would argue that that was the case in the spring if players would depart for the French Open or maybe felt too injured after the team season. But the qualifying pathway requires that you play college events in the fall to earn entry into NCAA.
So it's like regionals and, I don't know all those, but it seems like there's like kind of a lot of different qualifying tournaments, which is a little confusing.
Qualifying events, and how you do in that event determines whether or not you make NCAAs. That's the short of it. And so I think one of the cons is that you have now a lot more college players who are making a name for themselves on the pro tour and prioritizing some of those pro events. So a great example this year is Rafa Hadar, a Virginia second year, ranked within the ATP Top 170, has won 3 challenger titles this summer and fall, has opted not to play the collegiate fall before returning for his second year at Virginia in the spring. And so we see that on both the women's and men's side. I think that is probably the biggest concern about continuing to have this event. And you also have a lot of new additions coming in January. So we just saw Wake Forest announce that they have signed the #1 junior player in the world joining in the spring. No NCAA individual tournament for him. That was the same case for Rafa Hadar last year. And so you miss out on a lot of those new additions as that becomes an increasingly popular trend.
I always kind of think also the runway to qualify. It's a short runway.
Very short.
Like you and I were DMing or on Facebook or on Twitter/X about DJ Bennett, who was last year's NCAA singles finalist,
Yep.
and she just had a bad run of matches. And she didn't qualify.
She didn't qualify, and then she goes on to win her first pro singles tournament at 15K like the week after.
So, one of the great advertisements for college tennis this year was Oliver Tarvett for University of San Diego. Got to, I think it was with the second round of Wimbledon, and, played at center court and, got all this great bump. So he's taken the fall off, so he's not here. I know Benjamin Kate for University of Michigan. He was the NCAA doubles finalist last year. He's also missing the fall, so he's not in the field. And you were telling an interesting anecdote when we were talking before about Michael Zhang of Colombia, who is the defending champion here, won the fall tournament last year in Tulsa, or was it Baylor? Waco. And that he was playing all these challengers and futures events in the fall, and he at the last minute decided to enter. Why don't you tell that story?
Yeah, I asked him about that because we weren't sure if he was going to defend his title here. He won 3 challenger titles this summer and fall, and after losing in the first round of the Sioux Fall Challenger, he figured, well, I don't have any more pro tournaments left on my schedule. Is there any chance I could continue qualify? His coach said, yeah, it's kind of a roundabout process. You got to play the Ivy tournament, get the Ivy bid to then go play the Conference Masters tournament, got to make the semifinals there, and then you can play the NCAA event. He did both of those things, and now he's in the quarterfinals here.
So, what is your opinion? I mean, before we go to that, the thing that I think is, it's just from the publicity point of view. I mean, we're trying to promote college tennis, and the ITA and the NCAA and the USTA are trying to promote college tennis, but it just seems like it doesn't fit here this time of year. You got college football, you got college basketball starting, and people aren't really thinking tennis now. And I don't know, a lot of people I get text messages from, they're like, oh, the NCAA is, I didn't even know what was going on, etc. I mean, what do you hear, and what do you think as far as just the promotion of college tennis? I mean, is it better now, or is it better? I mean, it seems like kind of the micro college tennis world thinks this works better, but the bigger macro world of just general tennis fans, they want it back in May. I mean, that's kind of what I think.
Yeah, I mean, the gravity is towards the team event for college tennis. College tennis is marketed as a team event. And so in a lot of ways, I think the individual event rode on the coattails of that team event. Storylines continued in. But certainly the argument could be made that having it at the tail end of that event, kind of let the air out of the balloon a little bit. And I often felt that as a spectator. You go to the team event, and then round one of the individuals, you're like, oh, this is like a whole different sport.
Right.
So the theory of the case is that you put this in November, and you're not competing with pro tennis on TV. And so I was optimistic.
But it's not on TV.
It's not on TV. That's what I was going to get to.
All due respect to Crack Rackets, who do a great job.
Totally.
And,
so I was going to get to that, because there's an opportunity there to be on TV, to market this as an individual event, and we're not there yet. And so some of what you're talking about and sort of the feedback of why is college tennis now? Well, it would take some time getting used to, but there needs to be more publicity, more marketing around this event, both at Waco last year and here at the USTA, to tell people, right, have this conversation about why it is here, what they are testing for. And I think the big thing is, what does success look like? I've now been to both of these events. What is going to qualify keeping it here in the fall versus moving it back into spring? I don't think people have been super transparent about that, and I think that's a really helpful benchmark to understand.
Yeah, no, essentially, I mean, if you were the commissioner of college tennis, which I would vote for you to be commissioner of college tennis. What would you do?
Well, I start from more of the construct of, if we're going to keep it in the fall, there's a lot that we need to be doing differently, right? One of that is to market and promote it better. Here at the USTA, they now have the bid for 10 years of team events. You and I are standing here on this beautiful walkway with palm trees. This should be littered with past champion banners, right? You see that at pro events, they have their past champions. If you're going to keep it in the fall and you want to make top players play, you have to make it feel like an incredibly unique and special experience. This kind of feels like a run-of-the-mill event, whether it's a juniors event, a college event. It's sort of run-of-the-mill. And so you look at events that do really well with their history, at Kalamazoo and Ojai. I'm out in California, so that one resonates with me. People will play it because it's special. We're not there yet on this event, and I don't see a ton of movement in making it special, but that's the biggest thing. Right now, I would argue it feels better in the spring, and I think there are modifications you can make to the team event that make it not as brutal for the players. You can extend the event, you can put some days off in between. They've already reduced the number of matches during the team event. It used to be round of 16, we're now quarterfinals, so that gauntlet is less. So I'm right now thinking that it should go back to the spring. Regardless though, that marketing effort, that feeling of making this special absolutely needs to exist, whether we're in November or we're in May.
Yeah, I wrote an article on worldtennismagazine.com where I discussed kind of like a format change, and I suggested that maybe the final site should just be the Final Four. Yeah, I know. I mean, but I know I Colette Lewis said, I don't like that. Colette Lewis, famously from Zoo Tennis, I talked to her at the U.S. Open last year. She said, I don't like that. I mean, it is great. There is a great vibe when you have the team event here and you have all these teams here, and there's just a great, excitement. But I suggested that what you do is you should give the men's team final and the women's team final their own stage. Because I think now they play them on the same day, but I think it would be better if it was the women's final on one day, the men's final on another day, and then you alternate, and then the day of the men's final, the next day you have the start of the women's individual. So if you're playing in the team event, you get a day off after the team event, so that there's another one of those Orlando flights. What is that? American Airlines. I have American Airlines points. So that was one suggestion I had, but I'm a little bit biased, or a lot biased. I went to University of Georgia, and I was there during the heyday with Coach Dan McGill, running the NCAAs, and it was special there. I mean, that was way before your time.
Well, but I've been to Athens, at least it's starting in 2010, and certainly when the dogs are in the hunt, there's nothing special or more special than what that atmosphere is like. And if we can recreate that, and that's one of the benefits of having it on college campuses, is it doesn't feel sterile. And certainly when the teams are hosting that are in the mix, it creates a super special environment.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the things that Coach McGill did, which, really was a big influence on me and my career with the USTA and so forth, with working with Davis Cup, was he would document all those old, great matches. And this might not have been there when you were there, but when Coach McGill, what he would do is underneath the stadium would have all the newspaper clippings of all
there.
Oh, is it still there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could read about, McEnroe in 1977, Leif Shiras and, Brian Gottfried and, the Stanford teams, Tim Mayotte and, later on, Alex O'Brien and Paul Goldstein and the Bryan brothers. And, you really got that feel where you're documenting the history of this great tournament, because this is one of the signature tennis events in the United States. People know NCAA tennis tournament and the NCAA title, and and this tournament has amazing history. And to your point, I think that's to document, so young kids that are coming here, they'll know, hey, the kid that's going to win this tournament, as another airplane comes in, that is Spirit Airlines. They will be able to see, hey, the Bob Bryan won this tournament, Alex O'Brien won this tournament, John McEnroe won this tournament, etc.
Well, anecdotally, I think that was a really formidable experience for me. I'd been to NCAAs once at Stanford back in 2006 or 7, I always forget, and then I went to Georgia in 2010. I read the article about Bob Bryan getting the Triple Crown at that event. I read those newspaper articles. I saw those names. I don't know if I didn't have that formidable experience back when I was in college age, if I would continue to have gone to the NCAA event after that. I don't know if I came here or Baylor last year in 2010, if I would come back, right? And reading those articles gave me an appreciation for the history, and really has, look where I am now, right? Coming
You're hooked.
Every year I'm hooked. So I totally agree. It's super special.
So, that's something that I would, translated into my career at the USTA with the Davis Cup, and, put up the old Davis Cup articles from the past and so forth to, remind the media and fans and so forth that, this is a storied event, and you really should pay extra attention to it. So that could be one, suggestion. So John Parsons, thank you so much. I mean, I'm so glad to have this conversation. I think people can listen to this video, watch this video, and understand why the NCAA is in the fall. And we got what's going on the airline here, Virgin Atlantic coming into Orlando Airport. But to understand why the NCAAs are in the fall, I spoke with Reese Brantmeyer earlier, and she was saying, I just want the spring season to be all about the team. So there's no politics about like who's going to qualify, who's going to play one, and all that kind of stuff. And I really understood that. And she talked about how winning the NCAA title here, the team title here, was such an elation. And then she's like, oh, I got to play the individual tournament the next day, or it was 2 days later or whatever. So that really made a lot of sense too. So there's no 100% right answer, but I think that this kind of clarifies, all the perspectives here. But we're happy we're here. So John Parsons, no ad, no problem. That's a great college tennis podcast. So subscribe to that podcast and follow John on Twitter, J Tweets Tennis. If you have any interest in college tennis, that's the follow and that's the podcast you need to listen to. So John, thanks so much for clarifying this and giving us all some perspective. So for John Parsons, I'm Randy Walker, over and out here from the USTA National Campus, Lake Nona, Orlando, Florida.